Welcome to the War Room. It's Monday, July 13th, the year of our Lord 2020, hour 2 of War Room Pandemic. This morning, episode 278. We're broadcasting live out of Capitol Hill with our producer, Vish, Burra, in the hot seat this morning. One of the stars of the Uncle Tom movie. We're going to get back to that with Larry Elder in just a moment. Jack Maxey here to my right. I'm Raheem Kassam, sitting here for Stephen K. Bannon. Stephen K. Bannon joining us down the line. We're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, on G News and GTV, blown through the CCP's firewall and subtitled in Mandarin later on in the day on Newsmax. And of course, a great thanks to the America's Voice team out in Denver and beyond, who helped put this show together and make sure we get all the best guests and the best clips up. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Yeah, I really want to thank all our distribution partners. Remember, we're ubiquitous. We try to be everywhere. In addition, we've got, I think, closing in on 11 million downloads on the podcast. So we're really, really appreciative of all the distribution partners, our co-production partners, all of it. We try to pride ourselves in being action-oriented. This is just not a talk radio show, but this is a war room. Really try to drive messaging, narrative, and make sure you get tomorrow's news today. We've got on now a guy that has really had a much bigger influence in American culture and American political life than people realize. The kind of West Coast conservatives, Andrew Breitbart, Ben Shapiro, Joe Pollak, Stephen Miller, Stephen K. Bannon, were all influenced and mentored by our guest, Larry Elder. Larry, I know you're a student of history and a student of philosophy. On the Black Lives Matter, look, I come from Richmond, Virginia, and was raised in a predominantly black neighborhood in Richmond. That I still have just tremendous love for and fondness for, and there's obviously grievances and racism and all that. But when we talk about systemic racism, Black Lives Matter. Is there something deeper there that connects the French Revolution, the Bolsheviks, the Cultural Revolution in China? What is the point when you look at some of the Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and I think Antifa may be even more dangerous, when you look at these leaders and what they believe and you go to their websites, it really is not so much, it seems like, what the issues with black Americans, it seems like it's almost cultural Marxism. Is that the sense you get?
Well, that's how I look at it. I think all these movements are the end result of what I call the axis of indoctrination. And that's decades of Hollywood, academia, and media telling young people in general, that they're victims, that America got wealthy, got prosperous by exploiting other people, that America is an imperialistic nation, and they focus on the warts of America as opposed to the fact that America has struggled mightily to become the far more perfect nation that it is trying to become. So this is the end game of all of this. And again, it's getting people killed. It's one thing if left-wing people just have stupid ideas. They have a lot of stupid ideas. But these ideas are getting people killed. How? It causes the police to pull back for fear of being called a racist. And as a result, crime is going up in the very same areas where the Black Lives Matter people claim that they care about people. The other thing it does is it causes young black people, especially young black men, to be unduly confrontational when stopped by the police. After all, if you sincerely believe that the police are out to get you, that they're going to harass you, if not brutalize you, why should you be cooperative? Why should you be respectful? So you're causing both sides of the transaction to be far more problematic than it otherwise would be. And look at a city like Baltimore. 2015, Freddie Gray is the one that died in police custody. The mayor of Baltimore was black. The number one guy and number two guy running the police department, black. All the city council, Democrat, majority black. The state attorney who brought the charges against 6 officers, black. 3 of the 6 officers, black. The judge before whom 2 of the officers were tried, black. The U.S. AG at the time, black. And of course, the president of the United States was black. I'm reminded of what Wanda Sykes said after Obama got inaugurated. She said, how are you going to complain about the man when you are the man? You're looking at all of these cities where many blacks have been in charge for decades. They've made all the appointments, and now they're screaming institutional racism. It's absurd.
Hey, Larry. So, speaking of mayors and sort of leaders that in charge who have either paid lip service to Black Lives Matter or have supported them in some way, and then sort of getting the script flipped on them. You have in Washington a mayor, I think, of Olympia who was supportive of the BLM movement, and then they targeted her house for to do some vandalism, and then most recently you've had the LADA issue a scathing statement on BLM as well, as they've also targeted her home. So as this sort of cultural revolution, long march through the institutions is happening, and now it seems that there's a long march through the leaders of the Democratic Party who are now issuing some scathing statements when the reality actually comes to their doorstep. Do you think that there's going to be some sort of awakening as to how these folks eventually will see this sort of cultural revolution that's happening around them?
I certainly would hope so. What happens is Democrats, of course, run by telling black people that they're victims, that they're oppressed. And they get black people angry, and they go in there and they pull that lever for the Democratic Party. Then the Democratic mayors expect the same people that they stirred up to behave. It doesn't work that way. You've told them that they're victims. You told them that they're being persecuted by an unjust system, that America is racist, and then you're in charge and you expect them to behave. Look, I went to Crenshaw High School. That was a school that was featured in the movie Boys in the Hood. An LA Times front page article said that only 3% of kids at my former high school can do math at grade level. Now, you're a mother or a father, you live within the geographical radius of that school. You are mandated to send your kid to a school where only 3% of kids can do math at grade level. And by the way, it is a Crip school, meaning the gang Crips dominate the school. I know that because after I went there, Ice-T went there and told me he chose Crenshaw because he wanted to go to a Crip school. Now, the Republican Party is giving that parent the option to go to a better school, give their kid a better chance. The Democratic Party says, I don't care, you're mandated to go there. That alone should, in my opinion, cause black people to rethink their allegiance to the Democratic Party. And then illegal immigration, for crying out loud. You've got George Borjas, the Harvard economist, probably done more work on the impact of legal and illegal immigration than maybe any other economist. He said there's no question that unskilled illegal aliens compete for jobs that would otherwise be held by unskilled black and brown workers and puts downward pressure on their wages. So what are we talking about? One party wants to do something about the borders. One party couldn't care less. They want a pathway to citizenship because they know that new illegal aliens turned citizens are going to vote for the Democratic Party.
Larry, I wanted to ask you this question.
Larry,
I have been in the United States now. I've been back and forth for the last 11 years, and by pure coincidence, I was sitting in a cab on Thursday afternoon, and there was a local DC urban radio station on, and I don't know, what is the politically correct way to phrase this question, so maybe I'll get cancelled, but I've been cancelled more times than Roseanne anyway, so what does it matter? The radio station was playing, it was a drive time call-in, and they kept talking about Elijah Muhammad. They kept talking about the Rockefellers have taken over the American healthcare system to use as a torture device against black Americans, and Elijah Muhammad has said this. And I looked this thing up. I thought, oh, maybe this cab driver is just listening to some loony podcast out there. And imagine if you heard something like that on One American News or on Fox News or something like that. There would be national outrage about it. There's this whole anti-Semitic 30-minute long call-in segment, and I looked it up, and it was a broadcast licensed radio station here in Washington D.C., which is part of a broader urban radio network across the United States. And it got me thinking to myself, and I don't know how much research there is out there. I haven't scarcely seen much of it when it comes to the latest BLM, the uprisings, the riots, and what's pushing them. But how much of the Nation of Islam and this mentality and this philosophy, how much of this is behind a lot of what we're seeing in terms of the antagonistic behavior that is being pushed upon black communities?
Well, the ugly, inconvenient truth is that there's a huge problem of black anti-Semitism within the black community. The Anti-Defamation League has known for years that black people are about 2.5 times more likely to be deemed anti-Semitic compared to non-black Gentiles. And part of the problem is you have people like Louis Farrakhan and Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, all of whom have made extremely anti-Semitic remarks. And in the case of Al Sharpton, he's got a TV show on MSNBC. Al Sharpton was in the thick of the 1991 Crown Heights riots. He is on tape saying if the Jews want to pin their yarmulkes on their heads and come over to my house and get it on, let's get it on. He referred to Jews as diamond merchants, referred to whites moving into Harlem as interlopers, yet this man has a television show on MSNBC. Scotty, beam me up. The man made his bones by falsely accusing a white man of raping a black teenager in something that the grand jury in New York found a hoax. He was sued, was found unanimously liable by a multi-ethnic jury for his part of a $250,000 in judgment, didn't pay for almost 2 years, and the man has a TV show. In the case of Farrakhan, I want to give Jake Tapper of CNN credit. He's the only anchor, to my knowledge, who has publicly upbraided the Black Congressional Caucus for embracing Louis Farrakhan. And there's a huge problem in the Black community because of ignorance. Most Black people are unaware that a man named Julius Rosenwald worked with Booker T. Washington to build something like 5,000 schools in the South. At one time, 1 of every 4 Black students in the South was educated in a Julius Rosenwald school. Israel airlifted about 15,000 Black Ethiopian Jews out of Africa and to Israel because they were persecuted and they were victims of famine. And you've got a guy named Jack Greenberg who worked very closely with MLK and worked with Thurgood Marshall to effectively win the Brown versus Board of Education case. And when you look at polls, if you ask stereotypic negative things about blacks are lazy, blacks are dumb, blacks complain too much. Jews are the least likely of all the groups in America to say yes to any of those propositions. Yet, again, blacks are 2.5 times more likely than non-black Gentiles to be anti-Semitic. It's insane. Most Black people have no idea of the many, many things Jews have done for blacks, including help to co-found the NAACP, for crying out loud.
Steve?
Hey, Larry, real quick, we're running out of time, but I want to think about woke capital. Is this the support for BLM by the big corporations? Is that a misdirection play? They're open borders. They want more labor to compete with African Americans and Hispanics at the lower end and even the middle end, and they're using the slave labor in China. They want to go access slave labor in China as globalists. Is the whole support for them of BLM is a misdirection play so people don't focus on what the central issue is? It's economic nationalism that will get African Americans and Hispanics up into the middle class and to high value added high-tech jobs?
Well, Stephen, corporate America has frequently embraced the most idiotic positions in the Black community. I have a friend who started a magazine some years ago. It was a magazine that had the same kind of intellect mine does. Limited government, hard work, stop blaming racism. It was called Destiny. He couldn't catch flies. There was another magazine that came out at the same time called Emerge. There was a cover of Clarence Thomas with a handkerchief on his head, and the graphic said, Uncle Thomas, lawn jockey to the far right. That magazine got money from Chrysler, from AT&T, from Xerox. It ultimately failed, but they got all sorts of money from corporate America, and my friend who had the other magazine could not get arrested. That's how corporate America rolls. They believe that Black people are angry. They believe Black people think of themselves as victims. That's why they embrace Colin Kaepernick. And it's very insulting to me. Most Black people are hardworking, law-abiding, tax abstaining, and they embrace the country. But the culture of corporate America suggests that Black people think of themselves as victims, and that's the same mantra that Democrats push and the media push, and the whole thing is offensive to me.
1 minute, Steve.
Get access to your radio show. Yeah, how do you get access to the radio show, your movie, all of it?
The movie, UncleTom.com, real simple. It cost us a lot of money to buy that domain, UncleTom.com. My website, Larry Elder. I'm also very active on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. Follow me on all of that stuff. I really would appreciate it.
Larry, you're an American hero and a patriot. I got to tell you, you're a fantastic guy and a Rock of Gibraltar. You're a fighter. You haven't given up in many, many decades. You've inspired so many people. I think you've inspired more people than you even imagine. So just honored to have you on the show.
We've got a country to save. I really do appreciate it. And you left out Alex Marlowe. He's the editor-in-chief of Breitbart. I gave him one of his first jobs as my intern. And Michelle Malkin, her first appearance on television or radio was on my radio show.
Yeah, we wish you had done a better job with Marlowe as an intern. He'd been a better editor-in-chief. I'm just kidding. Great job.
All right, we're going to go to a quick break. We're going to go to a quick break now. Thank you to Larry Elder. We'll be back with more War Room Pandemic, and I'm very grateful for them paying so much for that domain since they bought it from me. No, I'm kidding. War Room Pandemic returns in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back to the War Room. I want to thank everyone joining us on the live stream, especially those coming in from citizenfreepress.com. Great new aggregator. It's been around quite some time now, but I know getting a lot of traction out there and just linking live into the YouTube from the YouTube feed. So we're very grateful for everybody joining us, and especially our new friends. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Go to netsuite.com/Bannon, Bannon. Get your 7 action steps every entrepreneur should take in this economic inferno. Guys, I want to toss it back into the war room to debate what Larry Elder had to say. And Vish, right now, since we got you in the saddle, tell us about the movie. Give us an in-depth analysis of this film.
Well, the movie starts by following a young black man named Chad Jackson, who has his own HVAC company in Texas, and it basically goes through this sort of history of first him, where he's sort of explaining, hey, I used to be a Democrat. I used to think that I believed in well, because he's a Christian first, that he wanted to help people who are poor and who are downtrodden and whatnot. And one day, he's having a conversation with his friend, and he basically the friend says, are you sure you're a Democrat? And he says, yeah, I'm a Democrat because, the Bible tells you need to be charitable to those who are downtrodden and who are poor. And he says, well, hold on. Does the Bible say the government needs to be charitable and downtrodden to the poor, or do you need to be charitable and downtrodden to the poor? And that sort of begins this narrative that branches off to Herman Cain's experience of how he came to be a conservative. Then Alan West and Carol Swain and Candace Owens and all these folks who basically go through this narrative that they've been lied to their whole lives since they were young folks, since they were kids, and how they had to explore on their own and ask questions on their own to come to the realization that they're actually conservatives, that they're actually Republicans, and that most of the black community, if you look at it if you look at the values that they follow and hold up, that they're all conservative values, but they're sort of the way my segment, particularly in the movie, basically that I make the claim that the physical shackles in the 18th, 19th century that the Democratic Party would put on you has in the 21st century turned into metaphysical shackles that they put on you in the sense that conservatives, minority conservatives shouldn't think a certain way, shouldn't feel a certain way. And so it's all...
I get told I shouldn't even dress a certain way. No, I'm not even kidding you. Yeah. I get told, and by the way, I'm not black, but I get called a house Muslim. Yeah. I get called Uncle Tom as well, which is, a bizarre what do they call it? They're stealing the phrase from over here. Uh-huh. And I get told, you dress like the white man. What do they expect me to wear? Like a shalvar kameez or something? I don't understand. Hey, Jack, or rather, I want Jack Maxey jump in here, or rather, as they're calling you in the YouTube live chat, the man with the hair like Trump.
The man with the hair like Trump, and an attitude like Trump, a winning attitude, people. One thing I wanted to say to Larry, first of all, I lived in Los Angeles for many years, and every single day, my wife at the time forced us both to listen to Larry Elder every day, and I can tell you it was well worth it. Best part of the marriage, actually. And one thing I got to say about Larry is this guy has courage. I was with him several years ago. We were up at the Hoover Institute with Thomas Sowell, and he is absolutely right. Anybody who has not read Thomas Sowell's book, Black Rednecks and White Liberals, is literally missing out on an epiphany. I read that book probably 25 years ago. It completely changed my life and my attitudes. And Larry Elder was a big part of me being exposed to Thomas Sowell and understanding what an incredible intellect he is. I would recommend everybody have one of Thomas Sowell's tomes by their bedside. Just an incredible human being. So is Larry.
We got to jump. Got so much else to cover. There's just so much else to cover. But Vish, I got to go to you. Tell me, what do you hope is the outcome? You're one of the participants in this film. What are the filmmaker and Larry Elder and yourself, all the people that put all the sweat and tears in this thing, what are you trying to accomplish, and what's the next step?
Well, the idea here is that, Steve, we just want minorities just to ask questions, right? If right now you're seeing a whole host of propaganda day and night talking about getting involved, getting active, making sure that you go out and vote. Or you watch any segment on CNN or MSNBC, every single segment ends with, we can only fix this at the polls in November. We can only fix this at the polls in November. But they're obviously messaging to you that you need to vote a certain way. And so what we're trying to do is basically get folks on our side and folks who aren't on our side, but who are minorities, who are black, brown, whatever you call it, non-white, and get them to just ask a question. Wait, I'm being pushed to vote, but who should I vote for? And make those decisions on basically on an independent basis. Don't allow all these cultural institutions to tell you that you're only supposed to vote a certain way. At the end of the day, my goal when I started my activism has always been, from day one when I got involved, was to get 20% of the black vote to vote Republican. That was my number one goal, and that's mainly the reason why I was so interested to do this movie. And so what we're hoping is that if we can get enough of these folks to ask questions, perhaps we can reach that 20% black vote number and basically banish the Democratic Party to regional status.
Wow, amazing. So once again, how do you link to this film, and how you guys distribute? How do people get access to it? How do they get access to you? How do they get access to Larry Elder and other people in the film? So
Larry Elder's huge on Twitter and whatnot, at Larry Elder Show, I think, is his handle. Mine is at Vish Burra. The movie is at uncletom.com, available for purchase, streaming, as well as you can order the DVD. And they have merchandise as well.
A great website, and they've got merchandise, which is, I gotta say, they're gonna step further than the War Room, Vish. Maybe we wanna get some of that merchandise link up going on the War Room.
Yeah, before
step ahead of the War Room. I still got Eldit. We still got Jason Miller's ugly mug still up on the site. Forget it. I don't want to talk. Yeah, I wish Vish's activism spread into doing the show right. Just kidding, Vish. Listen, fantastic. It's a fantastic posse in this film. Everybody's got to see it. We got so much we got to get to. We got defectors coming from labs. We got Jag Maxey's going to walk us through the pandemic, and particularly the school opening. But Raheem, I got to turn. You got I think the National Security Advisor, Pottinger, other people over in Europe this week, talking to NATO, talking to other people. There's all the types of activity around standing up to China in the South China Sea, and particularly holding them accountable for Hong Kong. I know it's one of the things that they're talking to the British government about, but there's been an expose, Raheem, that's kind of blowing the doors off the United Kingdom. Part of it's coming off a book called Hidden Hand by Clive Hamilton, who's a great investigative reporter that really ripped the mask off the permanent political class and economic class in Australia a couple of years ago with a book called Silent Invasion, which really showed how the CCP was getting into buying companies in Australia and then buying the political class. Raheem, what's going on in the United Kingdom? You're seeing a lot of finger pointing now, and a lot of people starting to talk about Huawei and how Huawei's embedded. Huawei's part of the PLA. They've taken over British Telecom. They've taken over the British really technology business, and nobody knew about it.
Steve, as you say, Robert O'Brien, President Trump's national security advisor, along with Matthew Pottinger, deputy, heading to France for meetings with counterparts all from the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Italy this week. And it's really hotting up in terms of what's taking place in these discussions about the depths to which Huawei and other Chinese companies have actually burrowed themselves within the national security infrastructures of major Western allies of the United States. We've brought to you on this show before, ladies and gentlemen, the stories about the United Kingdom, how far the CCP's influence goes in the social scenes in the United Kingdom in terms of property ownership, in the media circuit, and of course in the political sense also. And this new book, Hidden Hand, written by these two authors, which has been previewed in the Daily Mail of the United Kingdom this weekend, has really brought some major earthquakes to the British political circuit in the last 48 hours. The extraordinary details contained within this excerpt that you find in the Daily Mail are about this group called the 48 Group Club, a networking hub set up in the 1950s by members of the Communist Party of Great Britain. And this club has attracted amongst its members the former Deputy Prime Minister Lord Heseltine, who many people will remember, not exactly the Conservative Party's greatest defender or bastion, but nevertheless a key person within the Conservative Party, one of those people who helped depose Margaret Thatcher. But it also goes across all three major political parties, as the Daily Mail puts it, the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party too. That's not where it ends. Jesus College in Cambridge accepted 200,000 from the Chinese state and a further 155,000 from Huawei. And this 48 Club group also counts as members former Foreign Secretary, that's like having the Foreign Secretary, this former Secretary of State of the United States, ours is called the Foreign Secretary Jack Straw, and even former Prime Minister Tony Blair. And you go through this piece, and it's integral that you go through this for your knowledge about how the CCP operates, and we'll put it up on the War Room website. It's called How China Seduced Its Useful Idiots. Chinese communists infiltrated Britain to push their party line. And you're seeing, we'll get into this more after the break here as well, because we've got to go to a quick break, but what you're seeing now in terms of the push back against the Huawei skeptics, against the CCP hawks from within the British political establishment, what you're seeing is a manifestation of what the 48 Group Club was set up to do, which is to help the Chinese Communist Party in the United Kingdom and beyond, and infiltrate America and other UK partners along the way. This is War Room Pandemic, a bit hot coming out here. We'll be right back after this break.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room this Monday, July 13th, year of our Lord 2020. Got Vish, Burra, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam here on Capitol Hill. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Yeah, there's a saying that says there are years in which nothing happens, and then there are weeks in which years happen. We're living through one of those times. This is a historic people that are going to talk about this 100 years from now. This is historical making times. If you're an entrepreneur, remember, in every type of turbulence, there's also opportunity. NetSuite by Oracle. Oracle is the #1 platform on the cloud. NetSuite's the #1 platform for entrepreneurs. If your company's 1 million in revenue to 100 million, you need to look at the NetSuite package. Go to netsuite.com/Bannon, Bannon, to get your 7 action steps every entrepreneur should be taking in these turbulent times, this time of crisis. NetSuite by Oracle. Get the tool that can take you to the next level. NetSuite by Oracle. Raheem, I got to tell you, this book, Hidden Hand, and what's coming out, it starts to make a lot of sense when you see there's all this turbulence now that Huawei, which is, remember, Huawei is the future. It's basically about quantum computing, 5G. It's the future of technology. That's why the Chinese Communist Party has been trying to push Huawei out throughout the entire world, both in its network and its component, its systems component pieces. It is part of the PLA. It's the People's Liberation, really telecommunications company. Raheem, I know you got more names to talk about in this expose that's ripping the mask off, really the British elite, and how they've been taking money from and in business with the Chinese Communist Party for many, many decades. And this is one of the reasons that the United Kingdom's in the shape it's in. There was this report, there's all this talk now that Boris Johnson and his government's actually going to make the decision to get Huawei out of the system. I was interviewed by the Mail on Sunday and said this has to happen, and what you have to do, you have to go and rip Huawei out of British Telecom. They've been their partner, I think, for 20, 25 years. You got to rip all of Huawei out of it. I think in response to that, did British Telecom say this morning that it would take a decade to remove Huawei from its system, Raheem?
So about 5 hours ago, early in the morning, Eastern time, but about mid-morning in the United Kingdom, the British Telecom Group had a statement from the chief executive basically stating that it would be, quote, impossible to remove Huawei from the whole of the UK's telecoms infrastructure by 2030. Now, he made this distinction, Philip Jansen made the distinction on the BBC Radio 4 Today program, and we'll try and get the clips from that because that's really the flagship radio program in the United Kingdom, sets the news agenda every morning, much like War and Pandemic does here in Washington, D.C. But the chief executive of British Telecom, which remember was a publicly held utility in the United Kingdom for a very long time until being sort of moved to this half public, half private system where they're kind of too big to fail, so they're government underwritten, but they still kind of operate this private company. He's saying that if you want 5G Huawei gone, then that would be about 7 years, and we could probably do it in 5. But in terms of all the other infrastructure stuff, which is the 2G, the 4G, the broadband boxes, the OpenReach boxes, which are BT's roadside cabinets, which provide broadband to residential customers, he's talking about not being able to do that for about at least 10 years, Steve.
I mean, this is the point. I want you to get back to the book and about this expose of the British elites. But this is what you're exposing, and we're very honored to be part of that, to be part of these whistleblower movement and this investigative group that exposes this. You've got the People's Liberation Army is in British Telecom. And what Raheem said, remember, British Telecom is basically the nationalized, it's the old Bell system of the United Kingdom. But unlike Ma Bell, it was actually owned by the government for many, many, many decades. It just was, quote unquote, privatized, a couple of decades ago. But it is the centerpiece. It's like AT&T. You've got the People's Liberation Army with no questions asked, right? That is so embedded in the telecommunications system of the United Kingdom that it can't be removed for a decade. This is the type of rot. You talk about managed decline. You want to talk why Nigel Farage and Brexit happened, and you had this populist national revolt that actually brought the Tories, the Singapore on the Thames Tories to power. And you want to know why Donald Trump's in power? You want to know why Joe Biden's in Scranton, Pennsylvania, giving this economic populist speech? This is the reason. It's managed decline by our elites. And there's no better example in the world this morning than to see that the head of British Telecom, the CEO, after I call him out in the Mail on Sunday and say, not only is Huawei, you forget this thing about Huawei right now, you've got to rip it out of British Telecom. He responds, which nobody's asking the question. In years and years and years of all the BBC and the Financial Times and the Times of London and all of it, nobody asking the question. He comes out today, 10 years, a decade. A decade in modern IT, that's like 50 ages. 10 years to get the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, out of the system of United Kingdom. And by the way, it's here in the United States also. This is in the financial institutions and our corporations. These people are active partners. You can see it on TikTok. You can see it on Zoom. That's what this whole confrontation in Hong Kong is all about. Are the free nations of the world going to stand up and say, guess what? We want the Chinese Communist Party, we want the People's Liberation Army, we want this all out of our systems. And now you're going to start to see an expose after expose. Modi stands up to TikTok. Now you're finding out that, TikTok's all tied in with Chinese intelligence. Zoom's tied in with Chinese intelligence. Yet every school system in the world uses it. This is outrageous. And the British Telecom thing, Raheem, shows you the rot that's in the British elite. This is why Brexit happened. This is why Nigel Farage and the UKIP party, this was about throwing these bums out, okay? And the same rot is in the United States. And if you want to talk about making America great again, it's not going to happen in 4 years. It's not going to happen in 8 years. It's going to be a grind to turn this around because, ladies and gentlemen, the elites have sold out the deplorables. Just like the Chinese Communist Party sells out Lao Beijing, old 100 names, every day in China, you have been sold out, and there's no better example than British Telecom, Huawei, and the People's Liberation Army. Back to you, Raheem.
Well, Steve, you make such a great point in terms of the identification of these three major political parties that have dominated the British political landscape for decades now. The 48 group club that we mentioned before the break, this this communist club, effectively, that counts as its members, leading members of the British political, media, and cultural establishments, was founded in 1954. And it's no surprise to me, therefore, why the political establishment went so hard after Nigel Farage went so hard after the UK Independence Party all those years ago, 5-6 years ago now, when they were really at their peak, because they weren't part of this cozy club. It was the only part of British political life that wasn't being bought and paid for by several different, whether it was the Saudis on one hand, the CCP on the other. And we've got to get into exactly what's going on here, because you go through the names that are associated with this 48 group club and people that have gone to their events, people that counted as fellows on their websites. Yes, you've had leading political figures, one former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, two former Deputy Prime Ministers, former Foreign Secretary, but you also have other people who are very integral to how the United Kingdom is run and how the media is presented in the United Kingdom too. The former boss of Thomson Reuters, University of Cambridge professors, University of Westminster, where I went, professors, and Westminster University actually set up at their campus, while I was there, no less, I'm reading in the Daily Mail, the China Media Center. And interestingly, the head of the China Media Center is a guy called Hugo de Burra, was one of the people who went with Boris Johnson on his first ever trip to China. So you've got a Chinese propagandist setting up a Chinese media center at a leading UK university in London, and you've got the current Prime Minister Boris Johnson accompanying this guy on this trip to China. Now, the Daily Mail does the extraordinary thing of linking all of this stuff together, and I commend its work to you, and especially the book Hidden Hand, which I think is on pre-order now all over the place in Amazon and et cetera, et cetera. But what's really interesting...
No, they're trying to block it. In fact, they're trying to block it. They're trying to block it from actual... It's number one in Canada, but they're trying to block it from publication, exactly. I think in the United Kingdom and the United States. Look, we've got so much more to go. One thing I will say, if you read this book and look at the leaks that are coming out in the Daily Mail, Miles Grove's been talking about this for years, and everybody said, oh, Miles Grove's crazy, Miles Grove, he's a conspiracy theory guy. Hey, it's right there in print, in cold print, and they're now trying to sue to stop this book. This book's going to get published, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to see the rot in British society, the rot in American corporate society, and our financial institutions. They're already seeing up in Canada. Look, we got so much to get to. We can't have a show that doesn't have the CCP virus. And remember, all of this economic inferno, all this suffering, all this death, and now talking about the schools. Jack, we got about 5 or 6 minutes, I think, left in this segment, or maybe less. Hit us with where we are right now, the CCP virus in the schools. This is a topic that's going to take over Washington the next couple of weeks. I hear that there's a huge fight about Florida and Arizona, which opened early because of their Sunbelt status. I think they opened the schools in the second week of August. What's our status, Jack, on the CCP virus in the schools?
Here's the status on the schools. I think there's growing consensus around the world that perhaps we should perhaps not have even shut down the schools. In Finland, a country that did a complete lockdown, one that was lauded by all the people, they've now come back with information saying that they can't even find any adult that has been infected by a child, that the children tend to infect each other, but they don't infect adults. Their now chief epidemiologist is questioning the wisdom in shutting down the schools at all. For example, France put the kids back in school for the last 2 weeks of June. Now, only about 40% of the parents actually sent their kids back, but they didn't see some massive spike in new cases because of this. I think it's something very, very important for us to remember that, for example, Arizona is having a discussion about this. There has not been one person who is high school age or younger in the entire state of Arizona who has died from this disease or had significant complications from it. And we're seeing this across the board. For example, little country like Iceland. Iceland at one point had the highest infection rate in the world, right? And of course, it's a smaller population, less than 500,000 people, but it's a good microcosm to see how things operate. And they found that almost no communication from children to adults. And in fact, the children don't even infect each other that well. They usually are completely asymptomatic. We're seeing this also in Finland. Finland is putting the kids back to school as well. And here's an interesting quotation from Camilla Stoltenberg from the Norwegian Institute of Public Health. She said that science is very weak concerning whether or not the children should be in school or not. And she said, we are all starting to have second thoughts on whether it was really necessary to have ever shut the schools to begin with. And she believes that all the schools should open up. You're even looking at Germany. Originally, they were going to open them up in the fall with this massive distancing. And they're all starting to realize that the distancing is not going to be necessary. In fact, even our own American Association of Pediatrics said if a school cannot maintain distancing, it still may be better to send the kids back to school because of all of the other associated things that are negative for children when they're not in school. Learning, potential for abuse, potential for drug abuse, all sorts of things that we know are bad for children, bad for people in general. So it seems to me that the global consensus is that schools need to go back. Now, in America, I will say we're starting to cut out. People are taking different approaches, which is making it more and more complicated.
We've got to go to a quick break here. Stephen K. Bannon, Vish, Burra, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam here in the War Room. Our guest in the next segment will be Bryan Horn of the Over and Under Made in the USA clothing company. We'll be back in just a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room, Monday, July 13th. Raheem Kassam, Greg Mans is back, Jack Maxey, over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Yeah, in a world in crisis, it's now time to look at your investment portfolio, particularly if you're one of the individuals getting closer to retirement. You need to consider precious metals, that's gold and silver, in your portfolio. The top guys in the country are the Birch Gold team. Birchgold.com/Bannon. They've got a 20-page report of what to look at and looking at the alternatives of adding precious metals to your investment portfolio. Remember, in turbulent times, you've got to be in gold. Go to birchgold.com/Bannon, Bannon. They've got a 20-page report for you to work your way through and then talk to the team at Birch Gold. Raheem, speaking of turbulent times, I think you got an update of this really important presidential election in Poland.
That's right. The long-known Trump ally, Duda, from the Peace Party, appears to have come out victorious, Law and Justice Party victorious in this very narrow election, the presidential election in Poland. So it's another term for Andrzej Duda, President Duda, which means a beating back of the old establishment class once again, and a reassertion of this populist nationalism that the Law and Justice Party came in and swept to power with all those years ago now.
Duda was just, I think, at the White House a little while ago in talking to President Trump about President Trump's ideas of further partnership with Poland. There's a great quote. FT just put up a story on this. This is a quote. "This is a civilizational election between our Catholic Christian civilization and neo-paganism," said Iwa, a mathematician at a university in Northwest Warsaw who voted for Duda. It's a huge and very tight race in Poland, but
51.2%.
Duda wins.
Very close.
Raheem, 1.2%. Raise it then. Hopefully, hopefully that goes all the way. Maybe Duda's election is what Brexit was to Trump in 16. Maybe we get some momentum on this. Let's go back to you, Raheem. We got a great guest, Made in America, a great, fantastic company, an entrepreneur. Remember, entrepreneur is going to lead us through this economic inferno. Very proud to introduce Bryan Horn from Over and Under, Made in America Clothing. Raheem, take it away.
Bryan, the founder and president of Over Under Clothing. You're based out in, I think, Jacksonville, Florida. Is that correct, Bryan?
That's correct. That's right. Jacksonville, Florida. Yes,
we're
sir.
really grateful to have you on the show. We know you make all your products in America, and we want to understand from people like you and your perspectives. You've heard a lot of this vying for this battleground now of the Made in America, of the Buy American. We've seen Joe Biden, or rather Joe Biden's campaign, pick up on this line, really try and move into President Trump's territory on this. Tell us, do you, from what you heard from Joe Biden, do you trust the Build Back Better plan that he announced this last week?
No, absolutely not. Being an entrepreneur and being wearing multiple hats, as many of us do, you've got limited time to kind of research and look into this. But I've certainly I've been a truth seeker for a while, and reading this plan and seeing what basically, right? Like let's steal a page from Trump's playbook and try and. The guy's got nothing else going on, right? Call him CEO. He's got a team of I think very educated people around him that know this is I think one last push at how to fight for these battleground states, and it sounds like a great message, but let's be straight. The guy's been a 6-decade globalist. So how is that going to lead our country's America First agenda, which I believe in? How is that really going to work out if he was to be elected? So I do not trust it at all.
You believe in it so much, Bryan, that you've built an entire company on it. Tell us about the founding philosophy of that and how you've actually undertaken more success in the last couple of years under this sort of renewed interest in buying and making here in America.
Sure. We started this dream back in 2009, 2010, really. And our goal, was to bring American manufacturing back, to bring American jobs back. We're a small business, but we have, multiple manufacturing partners. We've helped them grow and hire people. And it's been cool. It's been, really neat to see. I can lay my head down at night knowing we're doing our duty as a small company. And what could these bigger guys do? They can make a difference in this, in our, keeping our money within our own shores and having American workers have a skilled labor force and have the technology and manufacturing come back. So we've definitely seen a resurgence in the past couple of years, especially since Trump's team took over in 2016. We've seen a great messaging of our American-made goods. People are actually paying attention to that Made in USA label again. I look back when I started this company, I was digging into all the clothing that I had as a kid, and then looking back at anything I had, and, shirts and a lot of goods were made in America. Everything was made in America for the most part, and the 90s, obviously, you come into the downfall of outsourcing everything. So for us, it's been a great, it's been a strong couple of years, especially the last 3 months. I would say we have a shirt, right? It says not made in China. Everybody goes, well, what's wrong with China? So will we have made goods in Nazi Germany in the 40s? No. So why are we going to make, apparel in China when 99%, I think, of clothing is sold in the USA is actually produced overseas? So for us, our message has been, making America great again before it was even a slogan, right? We've been trying to do this because we believe in it. There's low margin. Folks are finally paying attention to it. But if we can survive and we can make a dollar, we're not getting rich by any means, but I'm an entrepreneur. I do what I enjoy. I'm making a difference. I feel like I've got a great team of individuals around me who believe in country, believe in God and country. And we get, patriots that buy our products, and it makes them proud to pay money for something that was produced here. By American workers. So
we got about
if anything, I want to see that. Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, Bryan,
we got about 90 seconds left.
Jack Max, I just wanted to make a real quick comment. I was going to ask you about your line underneath your products, say not made in China, and you answered that question. And I wish you could answer it again because the American people need to hear it. Why is it so important that you have not made in China?
30 seconds.
Certainly. We put that. I got so tired of seeing shirts with an American flag on it, made in China. And I said, look, again, think back. I had a grandfather who was 82nd, 101st Airborne, fought again in World War II, D-Day. And again, I say, would we have had clothes? 40 years ago, in 1940s, would we have had clothes manufactured in Nazi Germany? No, certainly not. Who would have? So in today's present time, when you've got China making all of our goods, I'm not going to produce things over there if I can absolutely help it. So it's not made in China.
Bryan Horn is the founder and president of the Over Under Company. That's getting applause from Stephen K. Bannon down the line right there live on, I think that's the first time he's ever applauded anyone live on air. We're going to go, Bryan, but overunderclothing.com is where people can go?
That's right. Overunderclothing.com. Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Overunderclothing.com.
Amen.
I know I'm going to be on there today. Bryan, we'll see you in Jacksonville. Stephen K. Bannon, Greg Mans, Jack Maxey, Vish Burra, all our guests. Thank you so much. We're back tomorrow.